In this lesson, we're going to work with the ink bottle and paint bucket tools. Now, both of these tools work in a very similar fashion, except one of them deals with strokes and the other one deals with fills. Both of the tools are here, and the keyboard shortcut for the ink bottle tool is the letter S. The shortcut for the paint bucket tool is the letter K. Let's have a look at the ink bottle tool first. The ink bottle tool adds strokes to objects or modifies existing strokes based on the settings we make either here for the stroke color or down here in the Properties Inspector. Let's have a look at this red shape here. If I use the ink bottle tool and click in the center of this one, a green stroke is applied. If I click on the edge of another shape, the same thing happens. Now I'm going to back up a step here, and I'm going to bring these shapes together, and I'll show you how the ink bottle tool will work differently. It works differently on shapes that are joined. In this case, if I click in the center, the stroke is still applied around the outside of that section, but if I click on a single edge, the stroke is only applied to that edge. And the same thing happens with existing strokes. If I click on this section here, only that section is changed. And so on. If I click in the center of this one, the entire boundary is changed. If I click on the edge over here, just that edge. Okay, let's back this up. And we'll move on to the paint bucket tool. In a very similar fashion, we use the paint bucket tool to add or alter fills. And we use the fill color here or down here in the Properties Inspector. Simply click on a filled area to change the color. This also works on unfilled areas as long as they are enclosed by either strokes or other objects. So if I click here, this area is filled. If I click here, it's filled as well. Now, this is a good time to move on to the options area because our first option deals with gaps in our enclosed area. As you can see here, this area is completely enclosed, but I'm going to use the selection tool to get rid of part of it. Just a little section here. Hit the delete key and it's gone. Now, if I set this to don't close gaps, I can't fill this area. If I set this to close large gaps, the area is filled. So, as you can see, Flash will help you out here. Now, the second option for the paint bucket tool is the lock fill modifier, and this is exactly the same as the one we looked at for the brush tool. Now, to demonstrate this, I'll bring out some other objects here. As I mentioned before, lock fill works on gradients and bitmaps. So let's change this to a gradient fill. With lock fill turned off, if I click on this long object, the fill's applied all the way across it. And if I click on each individual object below it, the same thing happens. Now let's back up, select lock fill, and I'll click again on the big object. But what happens? The gradient is only applied over here, and that's because the last object I filled with the paint bucket tool was this one here. So again, the paint bucket tool has a bit of a memory. By the way, if you haven't filled any objects at all previously, the gradient fill will extend as if it were going to fill the entire stage. Now, as you've just seen, we're currently locked into this fill only filling this area over here on the right. What if we want to change that? Well, all we have to do is turn off lock fill, click on the large area, and you can see it now fills the entire object. Turn lock fill back on, and again, lock fill has a memory. It will apply the fill based on the last object that we filled. And that's it for the ink bottle and paint bucket tools.